What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Tide Talk. Crack a beer, cozy up. It's Wednesday, July 31st, and we're back in the away end to preview RIFC's upcoming nationally televised match versus Detroit City FC. Just a reminder, each episode is available on YouTube, and if you're watching now, please take a second to subscribe to our channel and click the like button on this video. You can also find us on your favorite podcast applications like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and if you listen on one of those, we'd really appreciate it if you took a minute to leave us a 5-star rating and a short review, as it helps more people find our podcast. If you're not already using the RIFC Club Collector app, click the link in this episode description to get on that site and go into the code TIDETALK, all one word, to get a free pack to add to your collection. I'm your host, Matt, and I'm joined by Garret from Channel 451 Podcast, making his second appearance with us, but his first on Tide Talk. He was back. Our last RIFC Nation episode was actually there with Garret. Garret, how's it going today, man?
Matt, it's doing great. Thanks for having me on again. Great that I think it was funny that you mentioned that too, because I think when we talk today and preview what's ahead, I think a lot of what sets the narrative and the tone for Saturday really goes back to 2 months ago and the last time that we were on, how things were and how things have become. So it's, great to be part of the continuing transition, right?
That's it. Continue to transition and continue to collaborate. That's all we ask for here. You mentioned 2 months ago, so we definitely have to start with that, I believe, and then we'll kind of get into the game day atmosphere and kind of our segments as we do it. But
Right.
it was Saturday, June 8th, where Detroit City put a 2-0 beating, and 2-0 as a beating, I feel like can kind of be taken in different ways, but this was maybe RIFC's worst performance of the season so far in a lot of Rhode Island supporters' opinions. The team just didn't show up. The team was flat. It was an absolute, kind of shit show. But we rebranded to Tide Talk right after that, and then the club rebranded into playing some serious football. Not getting beat, winning 3 straight, just in absolute great form. And, that all coincided. Detroit City, on the other hand, has had a kind of a rocky stretch in that same amount of time. You guys went on to beat Charleston 2-0 after beating us 2-0, lost to Birmingham at home 2-1, got a 4-0 win in Miami, a 1-1 draw versus Tampa at home, which is a pretty solid result the way that team's playing. Lost to Memphis 1-0, drew North Carolina 1-1, and last time out, lost to Sacramento 1-0. So what's been going on with Detroit City in the recent run of form?
So I think when we need to go back to June 8th, it was kind of at a transit. It was at a interesting segue of the season, I think, for both of our clubs. And the two of us and Ryan talked really about that, of kind of what are we going to expect from our clubs. We went into that match in June 8th trying to diamond shape. Carlos Saldana being in goal over Nate Steinwasser, Victor Becerra getting in. And City had a game that surprised me because it was like, hey, they found the footing. Elvis Samo's first match back after his injury, he almost put one in within minutes of scoring. Becerra getting a goal. It was like, hey, this is the result we've been waiting to see. And then the Charleston match afterwards was, there's going to be a theme, I think, when you look at all of these results, maybe apart from the Miami one, and that is, and anyone that's looking this out, if you ever want to check what if you use FOTMob or SofaScore, take a look at the timing of those goals in those matches, because the Charleston match was 0-0 until at least the 80th to 85th. City get a goal on a penalty, stoppage time goal. Then before the Birmingham match, we actually played Pumas in a friendly Keyworth on the 22nd. Liga MX won that one 1-0. That was actually a debut performance for Abdi Salim, who's joined as defensive on loan, center back on loan from Orlando City. But then when we took on Birmingham City on June 26th, we jumped out to a 1-0 lead at the half, played a really good half. I felt we were the deserved side. But then something happened. There was like a, shift. Something was in the water, so to speak, if we're going to stick to the theme here. And that is, I didn't know this at the time until the article, but apparently the team had been dealing with a little bit of a bug. And we didn't play to win in that second half against Birmingham Legion. We played not to lose. Goal in the goal in the 83rd, goal in the 88th by Birmingham, both off of not being able to properly defend the set piece. First time ever Birmingham Legion defeats Detroit City. 3 points becomes 1, becomes none. We respond in style with Miami, although it took 30, 40 minutes to get into that game. A good goal by Reese Williams to start off, and then the second half we take over. The Tampa Bay Rowdies won. On paper, 1-1 looks like a good result.
Sure.
When you look into the match, and we were very flat in the first half, and we went down to 10 men. Lijop was a little bit more hot-headed than usual, and got double yellows. And then, ironically, when we went down to 10 men, we were playing our best football of the match. And Elvis Amo gets a goal. But once again, being unable to defend late situation, a broken corner, Tampa scores in the 94th minute. So in paper, it's a dessert. I'll take the point when you look at the whole course of the match. But some people think of probably the terms of how the match was lost. It's a bitter pill to swallow. Memphis, we had the ball, but we didn't really do anything noteworthy of it. It reminds me of, you can have all the possession in the world, but it don't mean anything if you don't create chances. Once again, being unable to defend late or, sloppy in the back, and we lose. I think it was an 86th or 87th minute goal by Memphis. Then we went to North Carolina, a man up 5 minutes in. So with the man advantage, but we just looked flat. Guys not making runs, being static, not taking chance. There was chances, but they weren't clear cut and everything. North Carolina takes the lead, only for City to equalize. Victor Becerra takes a shot in the box, bounces off a North Carolina player into the goal. So we get a point, but in my opinion, we didn't deserve it that day. And then the last match for Sacramento, it's I thought maybe our best game in a while. We had some intent. We tried some things out. We created some chances, but we didn't convert. And when you play a team of Sacramento's caliber, a good team, and this can be applied anywhere, any league that you watch. When you play a good team and you give them an opportunity to still be in a game, they're going to make you pay.
Sure.
85th minute, unable to clear ball in the box or transition, we get burned. So I think now, and we play Hartford tonight at 7:30.
Hope you guys fucking smash them too.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to be wondering, because now we're in a situation where I took a look at the table last night watching the Lou City Eintracht Frankfurt friendly, which Frankfurt smashing them made me incredibly happy for multiple reasons. But we're level on points in the table. We have 2 matches in hand. You'll have the having played only in the weekend, but also I took a look at the home and away differences for you guys. You've played 10 matches at home and 10 matches away, and you seem like, from the record, it reminds us a lot of our 2022 team that we had, that seemed to be scared to play in front of our crowd and got a lot of draws, but we were good on the road. And that made us, even though we got the last spot in the playoffs, it gave us a little bit of a gap on Tulsa that year. You guys are killer on the road lately.
Yeah, I think a big piece of that, like you mentioned, is actually those draws and being able to convert those games that could have been a loss and get out of there with a point. And now those points are stacking up, and that's what's keeping us above the playoff line right now. So those draws that, as supporters early in the season, you get super frustrated with, are actually going on to pay great dividends right now.
Right. And I think now, when you look at how, it's almost like, I don't know if it's like the old hockey adage, when teams go away. I think Barry Melrose used to refer to it as meat and potatoes hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you simplify your game, but you become more aggressive by doing that. You become more focused. It's about, what do you need to do to get in this case, for, our association football, soccer reference, it's get the ball into the back of the net. And I think you've scored 12 goals at home in 10 games at home, but on the road you've scored 20. You've given up a little bit more, but you've also gained 4 more points on the road than you have at home this year. So now you're coming into an environment that I think you guys will love, that many of your players have been used to being in the last couple of years. in the spotlight that is a nationally televised game on CBS. I think it's going to be interesting on there. Pay attention. I think if anyone's checking out this Detroit City at Hartford tonight, Detroit City did have a new acquisition on Monday in the form of Jesse El Cedeno, who was for the Oakland Roots this year. Left-footed player, can play up anywhere up top, centrally attacking in the wings, 3 goals and an assist this year. So I'd be very curious to see how he gets slotted into this team tonight and how he gets slotted in on Saturday. Versus, which I think is, you just had a big 6-point match this past weekend with North Carolina.
Right.
You're about to have another one, and maybe a few of them at this
Sure.
rate.
I think we get a few stretched out now with Indy, you guys, Hartford always,
Yeah.
being the Derby. So there's a few that are coming up that are really big 6-pointers.
And for us, it's the same thing when you look at, not only we got to deal with a Pittsburgh team that's starting to get hot, then also Tampa, Birmingham, Vegas away, who are not the same old Vegas last year. Joey Bats has got that team playing like they're going to fight the soccer version of Roughneck O'Dur. Baseball fans, if you're not sure, you know how to get a hold of me on that. But the point is, it's like none of these games are guaranteed now. It's you have to go in and you have to get the 3 points. So I think this is going to be a bit different of a match on all sides than the first match we had on June 8th.
Definitely. And like you mentioned and alluded to, a lot more at stake. I think we did a good job of answering Megatron's 2-part question in there. But question number 2, you kind of started to touch on with our players and it being nationally televised and all of that. But Megatron wants to know, how would you describe this matchup for a national audience that may not be familiar with these two teams, even though they are both, you guys are both, we're both in the playoffs currently.
Yeah. I think it depends on what type of person's watching this match, I would say. Being that it's on CBS, I think it has a greater opportunity for a casual type fan, an intro fan, that's, hey, soccer's on the TV, let's watch this, right? And some of those people also might be used to, whether it's in maybe like an MLS type culture or just a generalized the culture that is, or a match day culture that is here, that in this country, which is from what you guys have done already this year and what people know about our supporter culture. That's not how we like to have a little bit more fun, have a little bit more flair, like to be loud and animated. And
it's not corporate soccer like the MLS is.
No, it's passionate and it's on there. And I think with that, when you get into now you're putting that on a national scale. You're not only putting that on a national scale, like say what we've seen in an ESPN broadcast before, it's a CBS broadcast.
Sure.
And if some of what we've seen from, I know Indy Louisville would have been the only game on CBS proper because Oakland Sacramento got preempted a couple weekends ago with all the things that have been developing lately. They go all out even more so than the ESPN stuff. When you look at the amount of coverage that they're doing, the amount of people they have on the ground, the amount of cameras and attention with stuff, which means the sound's going to be which will hopefully be amplified, which means people are going to be seeing this atmosphere in a different way. And from what we've talked about prior, this is a stadium that isn't the most aesthetically pleasing stadium, as we've talked about. This isn't Lynn Family Stadium in Louisville with all of its nice aesthetics and 3-tier layers and giant things that you can see off of a highway. It's gritty. It's a 80-plus-year-old ground that is always open because it is a public facility. But there's something special about that environment. And I would just say for those that are going to be watching on TV, take it in. I think it's going to be a good matchup on the field. And I also feel like, see if you feel anything from anything else in the match.
Are you guys expecting a sellout?
I would be surprised if it's, I haven't got an exact width of the numbers, but I feel like games that are nationally televised, part of it's weather, but I also think it's like, this is a 4 p.m. game against a 7 p.m. game. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. Oh, this game's on TV. Oh, hey, this is a good opportunity. Let's bring the families or these type of things, as opposed to like a 7 o'clock when it's going to be thick and weather may be different. You're going to get the diehards in there more. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a good crowd. Usually 7 something's the attendance. I don't know if it's going to be a complete sellout. Could be wrong. I think you'll definitely expect, I should say, north of 6,500. Maybe so. If it's north of 6,500 and in the 7 range, then yeah, it's going to be packed. It's going to be a good time on there. So I think rain is small, not as a whole lot of rain's projected. I think it's in the mid 80s here. But I think it's going to be a really, I think it's going to be a fun time. And I think depending on other people like motivation, if there's a good result tonight, I think that's also going to be an
Spark
added
more
spark.
interest.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an added spark because I think for us, it's like, hey, we got our first win in almost a month, which is weird to say that the Miami game is a little more than a month ago now. And also it's like, hey, you're coming in because you're like, you talked about, we just knocked your, like, if we win today, we beat your rivals, and now you're coming in because it's like it's a 6-point match. You're playing, catch up in a different way, and we need to keep the momentum. A
Right
lot
on.
at stake.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to kind of tackle looking into this game. But as we continue, if you could tell our listeners about your podcast, kind of the different offerings you guys do, so they might want to check out your preview of RIFC or post match after thrashing Hartford.
So we have a couple of different ways we approach Detroit City. So channel 451, and 451, we have a couple of different outlets for there. So we have the 451 Tunnel Talk, which is our full episode podcast form, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you check your podcast out. There's video shorts, such as like, well, we'll do Molding Over City, which is like news details, kind of like, hey, here's your news blips, things that are going on, this thing, that thing. And for that, we started getting into the YouTube live game a little bit last month because
Nice.
as you know, sometimes YouTube live is a great way without having to spend time for production. So we've been debuting something what's called the throw-ins, something that we'll do, whether it's we need to get something out quick, but it's going to be raw, here's a throw-in, or what we're doing for post live matches. It is the post-match throw-ins after, which is an immediate recap. Normally, we're not going to probably be doing one tonight just because it's a midweek game, but those can be checked out in the live section, or YouTube channel 451 Detroit. Channel 451, actually, we influenced that because last fall we did an episode where we couldn't all get together, but we're like, hey, let's all of us record something. So our, that time content driver, Sean Red Novak at the time, who created 451 podcast, he edited it to sound like a radio station. So as each person does their bit, you're changing the radio. And so
That's
it's
pretty.
actually, that Megatron comment, I think, is actually perfect in there because it's a great segue. And like, actually, that is the reason for that. And then on to the more, so, but I always said, I think in the last time, channel 451 is sports, but it's also entertainment. We like we might banter a little bit more. We might inside joke a little bit more. We might wrestling promo it a bit more.
Well, you have to have fun while you're doing it.
Maybe talk a little bit more shit, in a good sense.
Sure. Oops.
Man, the Majors Detroit is our friend, 451 member Adam Hernandez. He started that thing on there. That is kind of like our independent journalism type thing of all the sports teams in the city. So still some banter, but more of a sports journalistic sense. That's where you're going to see our match day recaps if you're on site and you see some of the stuff we cover, whether it's here or if we're at Keyword Stadium, whether it's interviews, media scrums, those type of things. And we'll also have special city things with Sean Spence, who is been involved with writing. He's got a Patreon for Detroit City Culture called Words About Shapes. That is the Make City Make Spence. We're actually, our next episode for that's going to be next Thursday night. So that'll probably drop at the end of the week. But a couple different ways we go at with city content. And I feel like because we have a lot of people prior to COVID, we used to have 2, 3, 4 podcasts at a time, and people like really connecting. People are really, really passionate about what they do on here. So it's a couple different ways for people to check out on there. And so the channel 451 at 451 Detroit YouTube, the Majors YouTube's at the Majors TV.
Cool. Thanks for that. Just a reminder to all of our viewers and listeners, we are doing something very different. We are doing a live show in person at the Providence Brewing Company ahead of this one. Really cool opportunity, really cool team up. Providence City reached out to us and wanted us to hop on there, and we're so thrilled to do it. So if you are planning on watching the game at home on Saturday, sneak by the brewery at 2:45. Ryan and I will be live there. So you can at least come for some mediocre soccer takes, but have some delicious Rhode Island craft beer while you're there. And we're gonna stay and hang out and watch the match too. So I put the link in the chat for our RSVP form. You don't need to RSVP, but it'll just kind of give you a reminder. But we're also gonna take your email addresses there, and we're gonna start putting out a little newsletter of all of our content. So if you just want to support our show, there is an option to click no that you can't make the live show. You can do that via the Google form, but it just helps us kind of reach out to more people and kind of give you guys a little bit more content. So we're super excited about Saturday. Really looking forward to it. It's a really cool spot. Tallulah's Tacos is right in the Farm Fresh building too, and they're delicious. So there's food, there's good drinks, there's a lot to go on, and you get to come listen to Ryan and I hopefully not make a spectacle of ourselves with a pregame program that's a little different than before. I will tease it and I will say it now. Ryan is fully developing a slide deck for that live show. So I know people love Ryan slides. There will be live slides at the brewery. So if you can, do your best to stop by. Come have a couple beers with us to watch this match. But I think Saturday will be a lot of fun, from you guys being in stadium to a lot of supporter culture that's going on here in Rhode Island as well.
Yeah, and not only that, on your end too, you got tacos, beer, slides, and football. That's like one of the
Hell
best
yeah.
four horsemen combo if there ever is. So yeah, I think it's Saturday has the potential to be, I think, just a good day in lower league supporter culture, and I feel like the more good stories lately, the better about that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are watching this and you're a Detroit City supporter, check out our socials because we'll post some videos there. We're going to try to live stream it on here as well, but you can kind of catch what that looks like, and hopefully that's something you guys can roll with too, and get that going on as well. But we kind of looked at what's happened to both teams since the last match. We talked about the stadium atmosphere. So one segment that we like to do on our show is called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So do you think you could hit us with a good, a bad, and an ugly moment from the Detroit City season so far?
I would say we'll kind of roll into a lot of the ugly. If I've had it, so we'll start off. I go horrible to good. I think that's exactly what we did on there. The ugly. I think we had the Louisville, like the Indian Louisville, was what I had 2 months ago. Nothing has gotten that quite bad. If I were to put the ugly, anything related to that, I'd probably put the loss to Birmingham Legion, how we lost it, and then the North Carolina game as my. So I'll go Birmingham Legion as the ugly since then.
Sure.
Had it, you're 4-0 against them. You're up at home. It's on a CBS Sports Network game. It's an atmosphere thing, and you lose your edge. And they equalized in the 83rd, one in the 88th, but Carlos Saldana kept them in that game as well with some saves. So that's my ugly recently. The bad, I'd go. The North Carolina game is probably, even though we drew, like I said, we didn't deserve a point in that match. That's probably the reverse Tampa, where you get a lead when you probably didn't need to, and it becomes a draw. This is the opposite of that. That is going to be my bad, just because I think we were off, and I think what also really, really was why I think the Sacramento game went well. I don't know if you guys have had this yet for you, but I know in the USL Championship and the player agreements that there is a required 3-day mental health break at one time this year. So, like, after the match against North Carolina on Friday, no training or club activities for the players were done for 3 days. So that allowed people to like refresh, unwind a little bit perhaps,
Sure.
and take all that in. And I think that can help a little bit for that. So I don't know if you guys have had that yet this year. But I feel like it's something that as we become quite more and more aware of mental health these days, I think you start to see the connections a little bit more. And then the good, probably since we've recorded, I mean, I think the win against in our match in June 8th was good, but probably my top good on the men's side is the win against Charleston on June 15th. That was a game where we know how powerful Charleston is. They've gotten younger this year. A lot of attacking player. Maraknich bags goals. Like I like this big gulp that I have here from Speedway that I'm looking at right now, and we were just able to shut them down. You saw, if you watch highlights or John Morrissey's thread, his threads on USL Tactics, or the 6-minute highlight videos that the league offers from Detroit City's YouTube, you can kind of see Charleston try different approaches every 15 to 20 minutes because we were throwing them at bay. So I think that's my top right there in this little bit of a run on there. So ugly Birmingham loss, bad North Carolina, and that good Charleston win.
Gotcha. Another segment we do here on Side Talk is called RIFC in 3, where we give a 3-word review of the match, typically in our match review episode. So if you had to give a 3-word review to your season so far, how would you title it?
Oh, good. This is something I got 3 words to describe. Full of surprises.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that works. It's the roller coaster of the season.
Yeah.
And kind of continuing with the theme of 3, you mentioned your new signing lately, but give us 3 players to really keep an eye on for this one.
For this one, look at Elvis Amo, back in the squad, back getting his rhythm back up top, getting a goal, getting involved in some chances. I think he's ready to roll into there. And then I'm also going to say, who else is on there? That's on there. Reese Williams, somebody who's really been getting into his own attacking wise. He's been a fullback or wingback in prior years. He's playing higher up now. He's also developed a shooting touch. Goals against Birmingham, goals against Miami, becoming an option. That is number 2 for me. I know we've talked about Maxi Rodriguez before, but I think Maxi Rodriguez is so much the obvious one that I don't think that it might be better to highlight on there. And that's where I'm going to be looking at, does Jussiel Cedeno as the new guy make an impact immediately? Is that somebody that, will we see? I think somebody asked a question of what I was thinking of tonight and starting. To be honest with you, I really don't know what to expect in here, because I think with Danny Dicchio's first year, he's willing to mix lineups in and out rather than, hey, here's your set starting lineup week in, week out, which is what we were used to when Trevor James was coaching before he's transitioned to the sporting director role. So I think if Cedeno's making an impact right away, he's your third guy. Dark horse third, if it's not Cedeno, I'm going to say Ben Morris, because
feel free to the next question would be a super sub. So obviously, depending on tactics, depending on starting 11, feel free to roll that into your answer as well.
Yeah, and that's where I might put Ben Morris in, because I think it depends. Because I look at Jussiel Cedeno, depending on where they slot him in, can be an impact for either. It could affect if Reese Williams and Ben Morris are in. If it's one coming in, one coming off, what does that mean for Alex Villanueva when you look at shape as well? Who's been our young player we picked up from Orange County, can play as a left back or left wing, left mid. So there are a couple ways on there. Does Cedeno come in to be next to Elvis Amo, which means we're switching a little bit to an outright 2 up top, or one tucked in behind, like a 4-4-1 diamond. So a lot of that's a little bit interesting. Another sub, Victor Becerra. There was a good amount of surprise, and I think a lot of praise from why we wanted to bring him in on loan from the Fire 2 side of MLS Next Pro. His last goal was in Rhode Island on June 8th. So I think he's hungry, I would think, to get something and get going, but he's got to make the most of his chances. And now you got a new guy coming in, there's competition. Last guy I really want to see, and I'm wondering, and this depends, I think, is Abdi Salim was brought in for some center back cover. Matt Lewis, one of our, in and out, epitome Detroit City on his chest. People retired a week before the season started. I think he was wanting to do it. He just decided to do it a year earlier. So we were a bit thin even at that time of going into our match on June 8th, Salim's a young 23-year-old Kenyan-born Somalian center back on loan from Orlando City. I think he was due to get into the lineup this past weekend, but back spasms picked up. So is he healthy to either be in tonight against Hartford or feature on Saturday? Because 9 matches from Saturday's match against Sacramento Republic to August 31st, Detroit City has 9 matches. So that means
quite a stretch.
Danny Dicchio has literally mentioned that everybody's needed. So, this is our season will be partially determined by how we do in these 9 matches. So it's not just next man up, it's answer the call when it's time.
Gotcha. I know you asked me off air, and for anyone Detroit City that's listening to this, kind of what's been the one of the changes with us. We recently added Zachary Hervau in from Tampa Bay. He's got 3 goals in the last 2 matches. We discussed on our last match reaction podcast, is it time for him to get a start? Would he be slotting in? Would he be slotting in? That's something to keep an eye on. It's left back. Gabi Alves is coming back to health too. We spoke to him a little bit after the game, and he said he'd be hoping to get out there again next weekend. So whether that's against you guys, whether that's Wednesday night in Indianapolis, or whether it's for the derby, he'll be coming back to action, I would assume, at least for a cameo in one of those 3 games. So we've been pretty healthy with the mainstay of characters, and the addition of Hervau and just providing goals as a holding midfielder sub 2 is just pretty crazy. So it's he's stepped up and he's playing really well. And his addition has also allowed us to, kind of get some other people back in other spots. We've had Grant Stoneman return as well to the back line, and we were playing Clay Holstead at right center back for a while, and myself and Ryan absolutely hate that. So always want Clay in the midfield. Clay scores bangers, and he always scores bangers, so don't want him hiding on the back line. But we've gotten healthy at a good time, and it seems like the form is starting to click. The players are starting to click together with that. So
I think it's funny too, because you were talking about it, and we talked early in our first meeting, I think, how you guys were a little bit trepidatious about the shape you guys were rolling early on. But it seems like since you kind of went back to that, or a little different variations of it, the Louisville match, because that was when we had the men's doubleheader, right, and the men's friendly versus Pumas. It was 90 degrees, so I went home for the men's match because our women were amazing this year. Shout out to them, semifinalist in USLW League. Unbeaten until the semifinal match. Great job to them. But I remember I got home and I turned on Fatma. I was like, and then I was seeing something, and you guys were 3-0 up. I
think you sent me a DM right away, like, what the hell's going on in Louisville?
And I think you were even more shocked than I was. And then that Holstead goal, and I was just like, yo.
He can hit him with the best. He certainly can. I think another big piece of that, and kind of maintaining our shape, but kind of seeing players in different spots with it, has been the return of JJ Williams, and his hold up play, his ability to win duels, is just really unlocked what the other players around him have brought to this team.
Yeah, and Deke seems like to be starting to get that rhythm and going. And then
I think there was definitely a learning curve on him and JJ on how to play together. And now that JJ has really elevated his game, we got Jojea Quazera cutting in on the left and just putting in beautiful crosses, and Chico is poaching, and he's able to knock in what he can. So the chances are a lot more abundant than pre having JJ on the pitch.
And Ybarra as well is going to be somebody that, like, City fans would probably know to a small extent as playing his ball at Michigan, college ball,
Sure.
Also playing with the Riverhounds before here. So I think it's one of those things where there is the ability on here. Keyworth is a little bit more of a narrow pitch. So also, if it's something that you guys don't like, you guys feel like you don't like, that might favor you a little bit on there. That could also be a thing too. So it's how the winds is. The turf can be inconsistent. The turf decides things some days and all that. I mean, like we've talked about what the type of ground it is, and when this ground was updated, Detroit City was still technically a 4th division side. So now when they redid the turf, I think in 2018, so 2018 going into 2019. So when you look at that, I think that might be a variable factors in there too. If there's a little bit of wind, I think, because if there's wind and stuff, I think that affects how this game might be playing a little bit. Are you guys going to be a little bit more aerial and try to use your physical presence with Williams and Dequa against the center backs, especially if we're going two center backs with Carroll and Alma? Or is that something that you're going to want to do your ground, like your little ones and twos, guys tucked in spaces, those type of things, force Murphy and Jop are holding, and maybe Ryan Williams if he's in, to really focus on one-on-one battles.
Got it. Definitely something to keep an eye on there. Keys to the game for this one. If Detroit City were to win, what happened?
Detroit City wins. They play, I would say they don't try to play too cute. They play with that little bit of aggression that we kind of saw in our first match on June 8th, where it was like the rhythm was back. We take chances when the opportunities are there. We don't try to go the pass our ball around type thing. And it's those moments of lapses, I think, that we talked about 2 months ago. Later matches, we've been turned off for just a slight second, and we have dropped. Shit, how many points have we dropped now in that since we've been talking about it? 3 against Legion, 2 against Rowdies, 1 against Memphis, 1 against Sacramento, so 7 points, and that's been in our last 4 home matches. So moments of lapses have cost us significant, to the point where that's the difference between us fighting for our last home playoff spot to us being level on points as of right now, and that could change depending on tonight's result. So I think moments elapsing if we get burned, but if we win, we're playing with our edge. We're not trying to be too cute with it. We take our moments when they happen.
Gotcha. Right on with that. And as Coach Almeida says, Ryland FC is carrying a ton of momentum into these games. Don't be surprised to see a win away and another win at home. It won't be big separation games, but I'm saying 2-1 versus Detroit, 1-0 against Hartford. So for that to come true, and if Detroit City were to lose, what would go wrong in this one?
I think the lapses in judgment. I would say set piece defending is definitely something that's bit us in the ass lately. Those moments, like if a second ball comes in, what burned us in the first goal against Birmingham is the ball went out to like in between where the corner flag is and the edge of the box, and you give Tyler Pasher, of all people, just enough space. So like you don't close in on him immediately. You give him a bunch of space for him to throw another left foot cross in. You're basically begging for a goal to be scored at that point. So set piece defending is huge. Because who's your main guys taking? I'm guessing Holsted's probably a set piece taker at times.
From outside, Ibarra's been big on the corners of late, and he's been very successful with Frank Nodarce scoring all of his goals off corners. They've all come off of Ibarra's foot or of Ibarra's set piece. But last match, he did struggle with the corners. He wasn't beating the first man. Usually we play a deep ball in, and there's a stack at the far post, and he was playing a lot to the front post. So it'll be interesting to see if there's an adjustment made there, or if there was a tactical change that kind of went on with that.
So yeah, I would say it's all about the pending, and then also the kind of your physical battles to an extent. I think transition runs too. Like we can sometimes be caught out with a stretch ball, or because of combo moment in that, just because transition pace. If we roll with a 4 in the back, because Stephen Carroll, I think, is a better center back when we have 3, because he's playing centrally in a back 3. Whereas now in a back 4, he's central. He's a part of a 2 center back pairing with Devin Alma, who's very good creatively with his feet for a center back and has the athletic ability to cover the ground. But the problem is when you're covering athletically and you give somebody like Holstead or Ibarra or whoever else the ability to play a split defense ball to like a Williams, a Dequa, or maybe push it out wide to Turnbull to try to then go inside out and vice versa, that creates spaces, and that's an odd thing there. So set piece and battles.
Gotcha. We had a lot of people putting score predictions in the chat, so we'll kick it to the chat and get a few in there. We have Ewan saying, I love DCFC, but 4-2 to RIFC. These boys are on fire. That's a lot of goals. Our guy Nate Ski's got a 3-3 draw, another high-scoring one. Jason has 2-1 Rhode Island. We have Jim, after bad luck last week, Detroit may have karma on their side. They'll only lose 5-1. That would be a lot of goals.
He's like Jaime from our podcast for Channel 451. Always predicts Detroit City 4-0. Always. Never.
Always.
Doesn't sway from it.
Brian has a 1-1 draw. Sarah has a 2-1 Rhode Island win. Coach has a 1-1 draw for this one. Nate wants to know if you're coming to Rhode Island next year with the new stadium. So let's see if we can make that work.
Let's see what the schedule is and the flights and stuff like that, because I'd love to get out to. Never been to Mass and Rhode Island and all that, so that'd be good to get there, catch some football, and get some seafood in.
Cool. And our last one in the chat, William Lamb, who's actually a Sacramento Republic content creator, has got 2-1 Rhode Island. He's been following the show closely, so always appreciate it when he picks in. So now it's that time, Garrett. Let's start with yours. What do you got for your score prediction for this one?
So the last time we gathered, I think I said 1-1 draw, and that played out to a 2-0 Detroit City win. We are at home as opposed to on the road. This time you are a better road team than you are a home team, but I feel like I need to stick to what is now tradition from 2 months ago, just because it's me trying to manifest this for the sake of some of our fans that might be a bit more anxious about this run. I could definitely see this being a 1-1 draw. I hope it's more than that, but I feel like the last time that you've lost a game was to us on June 8th, which since then you've drawn twice, and you had some massive wins putting 5 on Louisville at Lynn is something that, hold that up there, because
right.
I haven't seen anyone else do that other than, teams like 1 or 2 or 3 levels above Louis City. So you've clicked and you found yourself at the right time. So a draw is a good result. Do I want to win? Yes. I think we need to get the win. For us, we got to win tonight. We got to win. We got to beat Hartford, period, on that one, to get the rhythm going and to set the tone for Saturday. But I'm going to say 1-1.
All right. I'm going to give my score prediction on Saturday at the live show. So if you are on here or you're watching, come to the brewery, get my score prediction or tune in. I will save it for them. I promised Ryan I would do that. I meant to tell you beforehand, Garrett. But
hey, no, you're good, man. I figured you're doing a live show. You can't just throw everything in on the special one. You got to say
can't give it all away.
Live crowd.
That's it. So if you want to know my score prediction, if you want to know Ryan's score prediction, come join us at the brewery Saturday, 2:45, or tune in. We're going to try to simulcast it as well. Hopefully the tech gods work with us for that one. But Garrett, always a pleasure having you on. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Matt, thank you very much for having me on. Been always appreciating that, and also just always enjoying the soccer chats lately. I would just say, for Twitter folk here in Rhode Island that want to see the Detroit City Banter or be like anything going on in Detroit sports, I mentioned the YouTube accounts. Now let's talk to Twitter. 451's Twitter is at 451DET. The Majors Detroit Twitter is at TMSNX Detroit. Say that 5 times fast, you'll definitely get tongue-tied. But yeah, there'll be some content stuff going on through there, especially come 6:30 when that lineup results on there. And I would just say, for anyone that's taking in this game, whether if you're going to the Tide Talk Live event on Saturday or if you're checking it out on TV, just taking the atmosphere in there, because I think it's not only going to be a fun matchup on the field, I think it's also going to be one of those good atmospheres. Just taking it's because it's like I said, Keyworth Stadium. While it is, I've said this 2 months ago, while it is simple, it is significant when it's fully clicking, and I think there's a good potential that could be the case for it on Saturday. So, but I'm excited, and it's always, and last thing, as I mentioned before, it's always great to talk football on these things.
Appreciate that, and wish you the best of luck tonight in your matchup with Hartford. Won't always say that, but we're definitely pulling for you guys in that one. But again, just a reminder, Saturday, 2:45 at Providence Brewing. You can click the link in our link tree to RSVP. You don't necessarily have to. You can always drop in as well. Come have some good beer with us and watch the match. It'll be a good time. But that'll wrap things up for this one. Remember, Tide Talk is more than just a podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for daily social media content. Click the link in this episode description to follow all of our accounts. I've been your host, Matt, for Garrett from Channel 451. Thanks again for joining. We'll see you next time. And as always, up the Tide.